We made a raisin wine.
So let's make a raisin mead. So the other day, I was drinking some of the black sack mead that we made, and even though that was not really the way I wanted it to come out, it came out tasting really amazing, and I realized what I liked about it was actually the flavor combination of the honey with the currants, which was kind of a raisin. I mean, currants are raisins, really. So we thought, well, I was thinking about it, and then Derek and I got talking, and we decided, let's just do a raisin mead. Nice, simple, easy mead that anybody can make with really easy to get ingredients. The trick is getting good raisins. And for this, I'm using sun-made raisins. The ingredients literally say dehydrated grapes. That's it. They don't add oils. They don't add any extra stuff. However, what I did this time, I put them in some hot water.
The reason why Brian was talking about the ingredients and stressing that on the raisins is many times dried fruit are coated in an oil. That oil coating is not good for fermenting.
It could be a problem, depending on how much you use. We're using a full half pound of raisins in this, so that oil could be an issue. But I have some proof that there's no oil in this. These have been sitting in hot water for like an hour. There's no filmy coating on top of this water. It's just water. It's perfectly fine. So sun-made California dried, sun-dried raisins. I don't know. Yeah. That. It's like this crazy name. I don't have the bag in front of me, okay?
Link in the description below.
Yeah. But those raisins we've been using for years. We've never experienced the oil that people talk about, and they taste great. They work wonderfully. Just use those. So anyway, like I said, half pound of raisins, hot water. At this point, it's a little over lukewarm water. It's a little, maybe it's room temperature water. What we want to do, though, is I'm going to use a wide mouth gallon fermenter. In case you're curious, yes, it really is a gallon. We found out.
So we're keeping our recipe relatively easy. We want it to be focused on the honey and the raisins. So we know we have quality raisins, so we wouldn't use a quality honey. And we're using Sweet Squeeze's orange blossom honey because we thought that orange flavor would be really nice with the raisin notes. But then we thought, why stop?
Kick it up a notch.
Why stop there?
So I took the zest of half an orange, just, you know, the little skinny zest thing. Like, you can use peel if you don't have a zester. And I just took half the peel off. No pith in here. Even though pith, you need a lot of it to really change anything. I still don't like to do it. I like zest over juice. And why do we use zest over juice, Derica?
Well, I'm going to talk about zest, juice, and rind. Because there's different levels of all three things. The zest...
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Absolutely.
3 pounds of honey going in the jar while she explains this.
The zest contains most of the essential oils that we attribute to the scent and flavor of orange. Sure, it's in the juice itself, but to imbue that orange essence into a brew like this, really it's the zest that we want to use. Now, if you just do the whole peel, you're going to get the pith as well. And the pith is the white part of the rind. That tends to add some bittering notes to the brew that we really aren't looking for. And it's not the good type of bittering, it's the bad, icky, yucky kind of bittering. So
icky, yucky.
That's why we're sticking to zest.
She went with the technical term.
Then when you go to juice, you're just getting the sugars and the juice from the fruit. You're not really getting so much of the oils. And that's the main difference between the three.
All right, so I got my 3 pounds of honey. Next, I'm going to add in the warm water and raisins. And why am I putting these in now? Well, because it'll help break up the honey a little bit so it mixes better. May I have that spoon, please? Now, you may recall from our raisin wine video that was sort of a spoof. We used way too many raisins, sort of on purpose to prove a point. Now, this time, I'm using just a half a pound because I know a good handful will help flavor a wine or a mead, and they add a depth of complexity that's just awesome. So I thought half a pound should do. Originally, I was going to put in a pound, and then I started looking at the numbers, and I went, that's way too much. So half a pound it is. Now, I know also from the calculations that this is going to add about 17 points of gravity to my mead, and I'm looking at a target of 1.120. So that's where I get the 3 pounds of honey from, because 3 pounds of honey at 35 points each should be 1.105. So you add that together. It's about 1.120. It's a little bit higher, but that's okay. Within 5 or 10 points of my target is perfectly acceptable to me. And
now, sorry to interject. We know with our initial gravity reading for this, we probably won't get all the sugars because the raisins haven't had time to release all their sugars. But because we did do some of that pre-steeping in the warm water, that should have helped release
a little bit.
A little bit. Yes.
By the way, I steeped them in the water. I've never done that before, but a couple of people after our raisin wine video, may I have the water please, suggested I do that because that way they don't take up as much of the liquid in the container and they don't overfill your jar. Because in the raisin wine, they just like soaked up everything and there was no liquid left and they were pushing up into the airlock and it was kind of a mess. So to prevent that, I thought, okay, let's do it their way and see what happens. Okay, so I filled this about halfway with a little bit of the water. Now this water is about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a little over a room temperature water. That just helps to thin the honey a little bit and get things going. I am going to dump in my zest. Can you just hold that spoon for me? I'm just going to put the zest in and help mix that through.
So how much of an orange was that?
That was half an orange worth of zest. You know, a little more, a little less isn't going to make that much difference. It's just a nice addition. It gives this lovely orange scent without adding too much acidity from the juice. Yeah, like you can totally smell it right now. It's actually wonderful. And what I want to do is fill this to where I'm going to be right about there. Just past the shoulder is a full gallon on these jars. And I don't want to go too much further just in case we get a foam up. That croissant can form. That's what that is, that foam that happens and sticks to the side. It's called a croissant line. So the croissant is your foam at the top. It's kind of like all of your yeast just kind of going to town having a party on top of the mead. I want to mix this up real good. That way we get the best, most accurate reading possible. Now, as Derica said, we won't get all the sugars in this reading, so I'm expecting this to be a little bit lower than my target gravity. But, you know, expectations and reality could be very different things. And now we measure. And yes, we got a new turkey baster. This is the turkey baster of unusual size. It's awesome because I can fill the cylinder with one pull.
Somebody actually commented on it and they're like, are we supposed to just ignore
pretend
that?
This didn't happen?
You've got this giant turkey baster.
It's actually made for brewing. Or sold for brewing. Okay, I added a little bit more water. I went up to almost to the neck because I remember this is a real gallon and I know what's going to happen. Those raisins took up some of the space in here, so we could have an issue where I'm way too high of a gravity now. And that's something you got to take into account. Your solids that you put in will actually take up some volume, so you may not get as accurate a reading for what you want. One thing I would like to do, though, is oxygenate a little. I have a rule. If you can't have fun at what you're doing, you should be doing something else. There's actually a reason behind that. You want to introduce oxygen into this in the early stages. That way the yeast can help build their colony up much, much more quickly. And it does help with some of the reduction of sulfurous compounds that add to the nasty smell that some people say they get with their brews. Seems kind of weird to add gas to reduce gas, but it's kind of how it works. Anyway, so now I want to take a reading. It's looking like 1.130 to me. And like I said earlier, plus or minus 10 points, pretty okay by me. I will be totally honest, I didn't think about the volume that the raisins were going to take up. So there's that extra 10 points and why I put a little bit more in there, just to be on the safe side. So what I want to do now is add my yeast. And I'm going to be using half a packet of 71B yeast today. And we're not adding yeast hulls because I have a feeling there's plenty of stuff in there for those yeast to chow down on. As much as people say raisins aren't a good nutrient source, they're not, unless you use a lot of them, like half a pound. Should be a pretty good nutrient source to me. Half a packet, the rest gets folded up and put into the fridge. But what I want to do is mix that through and get a little bit more oxygen in there. because of the style of fermenter this is, it's very difficult to oxygenate well. Some of the closed mouth ones, like with the narrow neck, you can just lift them up and shake them around. Some people get out the drill and aerate that way. I don't really like to do that because I make a mess normally. I can't imagine doing it that way. I would probably have this all over the kitchen and have a serious problem. So I don't like to do that. And plus, this is much more fun. I don't know how much you want to watch of it. All right, I feel like that is oxygenated okay enough. It's not great, I'll be honest. But it does have some in there. It's mixed up really, really well. So what I want to do now is get the lid and airlock on this. Someone commented recently on one of our videos, I think it was the rice wine video, that we were talking over the rice, and that disturbed them because our breath would have bacteria and wild yeasts that could make an inconsistent flavor and ruin the rice wine. Okay, I just want to go on record as saying, yes, your breath could have some amount of bacteria. And yes, your breath could have wild yeast in it, though I don't think so. However, the minuscule volume that would get into anything is going to be killed off almost instantly by the amount of alcohol that will be created in just days. There's almost zero worry about that. Okay, people get really crazy about sanitization. We are clean, but not crazy about it, okay? Like, we rinse off everything in the turbos over there. Actually, we rinse off everything in
the red bucket of sanitization!
It's literally sitting right there on the floor next to Derica. And every time I use something, I hand it to her and she rinses it off. What you don't see is off camera, I'm dipping my hands in there and rinsing them off. We sanitize as well as we can within reasonable expectation. I don't like to sanitize food because I just think that's weird. Like, I'm not going to take my fruit and put that in sanitizer water. It just seems odd to me.
We cover our table with plastic mats that have been sanitized.
Yeah.
I bleach the towels multiple times each week.
And they get soaked with sanitizer water as we're using them. So the risk is very, very slim. And I'll be honest, we've never had a brew get infected because of it. So it's not really a worry. And we probably make more brews than most people do. So if we've never had a problem, follow our methods and you'll probably be okay. I say probably because you never know. Okay? And we live in Florida where it's hot and humid and sticky and nasty, and we have things here that will kill you just for walking outside. So I can only imagine that our bacteria and bugs and whatever are in the air is probably pretty darn nasty compared to some areas. So don't get so crazy about it. It's something to be aware of, but not something to like go, oh, I can't do that because of sanitization. No, don't be like that. It's okay. Some people will freak out because of the raisins. They weren't sanitized. No, but I put boiling water on them, so I'm pretty sure they got cleaned up. I mean, anything that might have been living ain't anymore. But I just wanted to go off on a little bit of a talk about that because it's been coming up a lot lately. People are getting seriously scared about germs and like breathing near their fermenters. I'm like, what? Even with this on, somebody said, I'm afraid to go anywhere near it for fear that my breath will get into it. I'm like, that's the whole point of an airlock, to stop that so nothing can get in there. But anyway, what are we going to do with this now?
We're going to let it sit.
And hopefully within an hour or 2 or 3 or a day or 2 days or 5 days or whatever, it'll start kicking off and we can show you the fermentation. So we're about an hour to an hour and a half into the fermentation on this, and well, we just moved it, and it bubbled a lot. It was totally bubbling, I swear. Sounds kind of lame when you say it like that, right? But the yeast dropped to the bottom, and then they started coming right back up to the top. And that's usually a good sign that things are happening. It's about to bubble again. We'll all just sit here and stare at it until it does. It's moving very slowly. Let me show you what this looks like inside. So as you can see, it's about to bubble. There it goes. So it's bubbling. It's not off to a super fantastic start, but it's not a bad start at all for an hour and a half in. If I go down a little bit here, you can see there's definitely the pooling of all the yeast around the top. Little bitty bubbles across the top. That's usually a really good sign. The raisins and everything have dropped to the bottom. You can totally see that. And it bubbled again while we were looking at the bottom there. See, it's starting to go. Look at that. It almost, and there it goes. So, what are we going to do with this now?
We're going to let it sit.
Does that joke ever get old? I don't know. I don't know where that started. We just started doing it. Yeah, we'll give this a couple weeks. When we start seeing activity die down, we'll take a reading, and you'll see that in the next video. If you like this video, we have about 300 videos on wine, cider, beer, and mead making on our channel.
Thank you for liking and subscribing.
And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.